Good morning, everyone. It's Christophe Choo from Coldwell Banker Global Luxury here in beautiful Beverly Hills, California. It's a sunny, beautiful summer day. We've got the sun streaming into my office. I thought I would talk today a little bit about two of the most commonly asked questions I get day to day on my social media platforms, my YouTube channel, Facebook, etc. The biggest question I get from buyers is basically actually it's threefold. What are my closing costs? What are property taxes, and what, as a foreign buyer, are the additional fees or costs I can expect in purchasing a home? So let's try to cover these three, in full order. So first of all, in Los Angeles County, so the County of Los Angeles, which encompasses pretty much all of the areas that I work in, we have annual property taxes, which run about 1.25% of the purchase price. So as an example, if you're buying a $1 million property, you can expect to pay about $12,500 a year in annual property taxes. And those taxes go to the county, and it also feeds into the city and the various things for water, vector control, mosquito control, utilities, public streets and sewers. So it's 1.25% approximately of the purchase price on an annual basis. Property taxes are divided over two payments a year, in November and February. So they divide it in half. You pay an installment in November and one in February, or you can just pay it off in advance in full. Property taxes can fluctuate, although generally they don't. In my home of 16 years, property taxes have gone up about 30% in 16 years, whereas property values have gone up triple. So the property tax rate, thank gosh, is not going up as high as the property values. But the LA County tax assessor can, in fact, reassess your property for value at any time and increase it or decrease it. In the two previous down markets, when prices were going down, there was an ability to submit to the LA County tax assessor for a reassessment, providing updated comps, and some people were able to get their properties reassessed lower, others not. So, but basically 1.25% a year. So to get back to the overall closing, let's talk about foreign buyers. So as a foreign buyer here in Los Angeles, unlike some other cities in the world, we do not have a foreign buyer tax. So if you're a foreign buyer purchasing in Los Angeles, unlike Vancouver, where you have to pay 15%, I think Hong Kong you have to pay 15%. So a lot of major cities, if you're a foreign investor purchasing in those cities, you do have to pay a foreign investor tax. But luckily, we do not have that here in Beverly Hills or Los Angeles. So basically, your only taxes are your property taxes. So to get back to the actual closing costs, and I did a sample of just $1 million to round it out. Not a lot for sale for $1 million in LA other than some condos. But let's say you don't buy $1 million house, you buy a $10 million house. You basically multiply these costs by 10. Now the costs for purchasing a property in terms of closing costs will vary depending on if you're doing an all cash purchase or you're financing the property. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. If you're purchasing the property for all cash, obviously you have no loan points and no loan fees. So typically your average buyer buying a $1 million property will put 20, 30, maybe 50% down. So your loan amount, which typically is, let's say, 80% of the value of the property, it's called loan to value or LTV. So let's say you buy a $1 million property, you have an $800,000 loan. Typically, you're going to pay points on borrowing that loan. So points is usually a percentage rate. It's anywhere from 0.5% to about 2%. And typically, in my experience of 28 years, the higher the points you pay, you're basically buying down the interest rate. So every lender is a little bit different, but if you pay 1 point, you might pay 3.75%. If you pay 2 points, you might pay 3.65% or 3.5%. So you can pay a higher point up front to buy down the rate. So you need to talk to your lender and see if you're going to be there for only a short time in that house in your mind or your plan, then maybe you want to have a higher rate and not pay the points up front. If you plan this is your lifetime home, maybe pay a higher rate up front and reduce that interest rate so you have a good rate for the term of the loan. And especially with the lowest rate still in 40-some years, it's a good way to do it. Escrow fees are pretty basic. There's typically a base cost, which is around $200. So the escrow charges a base fee of $200. And it's typically between $1.75 to $2 per thousand of sales price. So for example, at a $1 million purchase, you're looking to pay about $2,200 in escrow fees. Insurance. So in California, there's different types of insurance. is your general fire and liability insurance policy. There's no way to really quote that because it really depends on the size of the home, the age of the home, and the construction. Insurance can range anywhere from $2,000 a year in a small home to $20,000 a year or even more for a larger home. And again, depending on how much liability coverage you want. If you have a lot of assets, a lot of net worth, you want to have a high liability amount, and even maybe an umbrella liability policy to cover and protect you and your assets. So insurance, that's for general homeowners, fire and liability insurance. In California, we do have earthquakes, so many people do get earthquake insurance. That can be on the pricey side. I would say a good insurance policy for replacement cost in case of a catastrophic earthquake on let's say a 2,000 square foot home, you might be paying $3,000 to $4,000 per year for earthquake insurance. If you live up in the hills, you have to get fire insurance for the hillsides, which is a little bit harder to get, and it's maybe a little bit more expensive. And in some parts of LA, we have what are called flood zones, which are below some of our local reservoirs or floodplains. So some lenders will require you to have flood insurance on your property. I have one of my apartment buildings. It's in Silver Lake. It's near the reservoir, and we pay on a 5,000 square foot building. We pay about $6,000 a year for flood insurance. So pretty much fire and liability insurance you really need to get. Earthquake insurance is optional, but most people do have it. And then flood insurance if you are in a flood zone. So we talked about loan fees, tax impounds. So some lenders, when you purchase a property, will ask you to prepay your taxes up front or a portion of those taxes. So that's depending on the lender. Sometimes with your mortgage payment, you can include the taxes through the lender. They'll pay it for you if you prefer to pay it monthly versus getting that big bill twice a year. So that's really kind of up to you. So we talked about taxes, insurance. Okay, so some of the other costs. Home warranty. I always recommend as a purchaser, you get a home protection plan or home warranty for your home. Typically, in 28 years, I've never sold a property without a home warranty. So we do typically request the seller to pay for that home warranty for you. Most will, but not all will. So a home warranty, a standard 2,000 square foot house, the base cost might be around $450. And for the home warranty, which covers basically your electrical, plumbing, your general house, you can get premium warranties, which are a little bit more expensive and more comprehensive. And you get additional warranties for pool equipment, washers, dryers, stoves, refrigerators. Each additional amount, like a washer and dryer, might be $75. A stove might be $75. A refrigerator might be $75. So each thing you add on will add to that base cost of that home warranty. But again, typically, most sellers will pay for that. When you are getting a loan, you will have to pay a credit report fee. So the lender will charge you $75 to $100 per borrower to get your credit report. Also, I go back to escrow fees. Aside from the base cost, you may have to pay for notary fees, document preparation fees, which may be a few $100s. So that there may be some small fees, FedEx fees if FedExing is required. So there are some additional fees, but basically the basic escrow cost of $200 base and then $1.75 or $2 per thousand is to be expected. The upfront costs you have to pay when you purchase, or not have to pay, but we always recommend you do, is inspections. So a lot has changed in 28 years for inspections. Back in the old days, there were not a lot of inspections that were available today with modern technology. So in today's world, we generally recommend the buyer start off with 3 basic inspections. One is your general home inspection. We have a great inspector come out. All they do is just inspect homes. They give you a full written report. And let's say a 2,500 square foot house will probably run you about $450 for a general home inspection. So the inspector generally checks all of the systems, appliances, roof, plumbing, foundation as an overall inspection. That inspector will typically recommend additional inspections if he sees issues. So general home inspection is pretty much always requested and suggested. Number 2, in today's world, if the house has chimneys, we always suggest you have a chimney inspection where the company will come out, send a video camera up through the entire chimney to check for breakages in the stone or brickwork, compromises, faulty installations, areas that are open that could cause fires. So a chimney inspection generally runs about $350 per fireplace. So if you're buying a home with 6 chimneys, it's going to cost you some money. So just know that. But I think it's very important to get a chimney inspection. The last one that's generally recommended is the sewer line inspection. And these have only started about 6 or 7 years ago. In today's world, we have small video cameras, so basically they check the sewer line from the main connection at the house, is usually a clean out, all the way to the city connection. Because I would say in my experience, 20 to 30% of the time, we find that there are issues with the main sewer line. And you really want to take care of that, because a sewer line, if the sewage is backing up or is clogged because of root intrusion or cracks or breakage, it can be costly and expensive to repair, and nobody wants sewage backing up in the house. So a scoping of a sewer line will typically cost you about $450, where they come and they video inspect the line with the camera all the way through to see if there's any cracks, breakage, or any issues with the sewer line. So those are the three most important inspections. Once you've had those three, and particularly after the general inspection, if the inspector thinks there's some potential plumbing issues or roof issues, electrical issues, foundation issues, drainage issues, sometimes after the general inspection we have 5 or 10 or even 12 additional specialists to come out and inspect all of those other items. And that's all kind of on a case-by-case basis for cost. So to kind of wrap it all up, when I did an estimate this morning of $1 million purchase price, with kind of just the general 3 basic inspections and basic escrow fees, etc., the total closing costs came out to, this is without any loan fees, came out to about just under $27,000. So what I typically tell a buyer when you're purchasing a house, you can expect to pay anywhere from 3 to 5 points or percent of the purchase price for your overall closing expenses. So again, 3 to 5% as your overall closing cost as a buyer, which is cash that you will need up front to purchase that property. So I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into what you expect to pay for closing costs. Typically when I meet a buyer, we go out to look at properties, they ask that question, and we actually identify a property and make an offer. We put together a written estimate for you. It's just an estimate to give you a general idea of what you can expect in terms of your closing costs for the purchase of that home or condo. So I hope this was helpful to you. I'm going to be doing more of these kind of educational videos to help you know more about, what are the closing costs. I'm going to do one for sellers shortly, so stay tuned, and I hope this helps you to get a little bit more of an understanding about the LA market in terms of what you have to pay as a buyer to purchase that new home or condo or investment property. Doesn't all change that much. Anyways, have a great day. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from beautiful Beverly Hills. Thanks.